Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Everyday people, everyday situations. It's all in His Word. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Everyday people, everyday situations. It's all in His Word. Let's talk about it.
Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Let's Talk. I am so excited today. I have Dr. Keisha Keith with me here today. And today we are talking about, well, actually, let me just say this. The month of October, we are moving into speaking about relationships and the importance of relationships and how we manage those relationships. And as I prayed about how we were going to do this, one of the first things God put on my heart and my mind was that we can't begin to talk about relationships until we talked about our relationship with ourselves. And so we're kicking it off tonight with Dr. Keisha Keith, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about how we learn to be in relationship with ourselves and how we learn to love each other. She has such an awesome story, and I just want to give her a moment just to introduce herself to you guys so that you can get to know her a little bit.
Well, hello, everyone. I am Dr. Keisha Keith. I am a licensed professional counselor, licensed clinical mental health counselor. And from that, there's a journey and a story. I actually went to school and I was going to be an attorney for sure, is what I thought. And I was going to be a corporate attorney. So I was going to do all of these, contracts and make all this money. And then I attended some social work and counseling classes in undergrad. And I really was drawn to everything my professors were talking about. And I said, this is where I want to make my impact. I feel this pull more so than I did, going into the courtroom. And so with that, that was the journey. But in that journey, I also learned that counseling firsthand is important. Self-care firsthand is important. I found myself battling with postpartum depression. And because of that, I knew I had to do some things differently. I had to really stop trying to do and go and be for everybody else, but never necessarily being and doing for myself. Because I have to, we all have to be able to recharge. We have to be able to have something to give out. Because if the cup becomes empty, we have nothing and it benefits us in no way. And so for me, being able to go through that journey, I saw firsthand, this is what it's like to meet a counselor. This is what it's like to question these people and say, I don't know if you for me, or I don't know if what you're saying is going to work, but I'm going to give it a try. And that's all it takes is just taking one step and giving it a try. You'll see if it not a good fit, fine. But keep on looking for that person because it is important to be able to talk to someone, be able to have someone journey and support you along the way. And that's what I gained in this process. And so I know for a fact that it makes me a better counselor. It makes me better in so many areas of life because I have identified what my boundaries are. And that's key. We all have to know that. What is our limit? What we can give and what we can't.
I love that. So you are able to, with your life journey, now you're able to invest that back into the people that you come in contact with. Yes. I am sure that took your first decision when you decided that you were going to step into, I want to call it helps. Like you were definitely going to the Ministry of Helps when you decided to take on counseling and social work. And so anybody who knows anything about that particular industry, you know that you're not going into it for the dollars. You're going into it because you have a love and a passion for people. And so that takes a lot of guts and trusting your instincts and the call and the pull that you hear on your life. So I'm impressed that even at such a young age that you were able to make that decision. But I do think that sort of speaks to the value of loving and honoring yourself.
Yes.
Because you were
Yeah.
able to see that even though it wasn't the thing that you had dreamed of all your life, it was the right thing for you.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think that we all have some sort of plan. We all have some sort of, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And it's going to be so wonderful and so awesome. And then those things in life come and they help to totally redefine and shift a trajectory that we thought, okay, we're going to be on this. It's going to be all good. But absolutely, it's about purpose. Because here's the real deal. I would do this job even if I didn't get paid for it. Now, don't get me wrong. I absolutely want to get paid for it. And I want to be able to, because those bills, that is what it is. You have to pay those. And so, but at the same time, it is not necessarily taxing. It is not something that I feel like, oh boy, I gotta get up and go do this. It is something that I enjoy. And so it's about your purpose. What is your purpose? What are you designed to be on earth to do?
Mm.
Um, and being able to walk in that. I'm so thankful that I was able to be able to do that younger than some people are. And it does not matter what age you are. It means that you just need to shift and move with the shift.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's the thing about though, when you find your purpose, one, it's not ever hard. Like when you're
No,
doing it. Now, don't get me
no.
wrong, because if anybody tells you that they're walking in their purpose and they've never been scared, they've never been challenged, they never wanted to throw in the towel, they've never
Yeah,
been like, this is not for me.
right.
Jesus, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even like these people. Why you got me out here? If you ain't ever had none of those conversations, then you
Oh,
probably still truly are not walking in your purpose. But
right,
my
right.
point in saying all that is though that even after all that's been said and done, even when you take the hurt that comes with following your purpose, the
Hmm.
disappointment, it's still
Yeah,
the thing that drives you to get up in the next morning. I think what you said is so
absolutely.
true, is that so many times when we're walking in our purpose, when we do it naturally, and
Yeah,
then two, you do it all the time without getting paid. I'm sure even your
exactly.
friends, you like, really, I need to send you a bill today. Like I'm adding you to the bill line because it just
Right.
naturally comes out of you because it's what you were called on this
Yeah,
earth to do. My
yeah.
question to you would be, as we are learning to love ourselves, sometimes either when we haven't found our purpose or like you said before, it didn't pan out the way you thought it was. You know, we
Hmm.
create this image in our head. I tell
Yeah,
my kids all the time, I had my life mapped out. I knew
yeah.
exactly how it all was supposed to go.
Right.
And I was very disappointed at 25 that life did not listen to me. I
Yeah,
told it what to do and it didn't do that. And it was just a very
right.
disappointing thing for me.
Yeah.
Um, if you find yourself in a place like that, how do you deal with that? How do you forgive yourself for one,
Mhm.
and then pick up the pieces to move on to find where you should be?
Mhm. And I think that's a great question. It is really taking a step back and understanding that this is a journey, first of all. And in the journey, it is there are going to be some peaks, there are going to be some valleys, there are going to be some rivers you might have to swim, some hills you might have to climb. There, it's just going to happen. And the key component is that you are able to get in a space of, ooh, okay, I've gotta be able to realign some things. And in that realigning, it means that I have to pray.
Mm,
It means that I have to fast. It
mm,
means that there are certain things that have my attention right now that I need to unplug from so that I really can be still, so
mm,
that I really can know, okay, this is where I'm supposed to go. This is what God is leading me to. Because if He leads me to it, He will carry me through it.
mm,
And in doing that, I am allowing Him to be in the driver's seat. I'm the passenger over here and I'm looking and I'm listening and I'm learning so that when I get the pieces and he picks them back up and puts them together, I'm okay. And I feel just like that fearfully and wonderfully made person that
yes.
he designed me to be. And absolutely that fear, that guilt, that all of that comes because we are human beings. But in that human experience, we acknowledge that. We don't stuff that down. We don't pretend that it doesn't exist and try to do all these other things and be busy. We allow ourselves to address those things. Once we release them, we can receive other stuff because our hands are open. And
Yeah.
so that's what I tell anybody. You can have a plan, and that plan does not go well. That is okay. As long as you get to wake up the next morning, you get a chance to restart. We get a chance to reset. And
Yeah.
that's the important piece.
I love that. I love that the thing that you said about realigning, allowing yourself to realign. I think so many times, especially as Christians, we want to be perfect. We want it to all go exactly according to plan.
Yeah.
We don't want to have any of those guilts or regrets about anything. And the
Right.
truth is there are going to be so many times when you may have to restart. I
Yes.
think one of the best pieces of advice I ever gave, and I probably have shared this multiple times, but it will always stick with me.
Mhm.
It was in marriage counseling, but it was for me as a person. And
Yeah.
so the counselor said to me, "Where show me where in the Bible that it says that God is a traffic cop."
Mm. Mhm.
Right. And I was just
Mhm.
like, nowhere, what are you trying to say? And he's like,
Yeah.
so what makes you think that he doesn't want you to move? And what makes you
Mm.
think that he's not a big enough God that he can
Yeah.
shake you no matter where you are? Because like my
Mhm.
Bible says that he's a potter. So that means no matter
Yes.
where you are or what you are doing, he has the
Yeah.
ability to shape you into what he
Yeah.
has for you. It was the most
Absolutely.
freeing thing for me because as in my mind as a Christian, I didn't want to miss God.
Yeah.
And so I was almost
Yeah.
paralyzed in fear of making decisions because I was like, but I
Mhm.
might miss him. And if I go to the right, what if he's not to the right? Or if
Right.
I keep going straight and he says stop, or all those things. And I'm just like so indecisive in my
Yeah.
life because I
Yeah.
was so terrified of somehow disappointing God.
Mhm.
He's God. He is all
Yeah.
seeing, all knowing. He's our Alpha and
Yes.
Omega. He knows our
Right.
beginning and our end and
Yeah.
everything that we're going to do in between. And there's nothing that we can do to take away from that. All he's
Yeah.
going to do is add volumes to that. And so I do
Yes.
love that you pointed that out, is that it is
Yeah.
okay to shift and allow God to realign.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Because if he doesn't, um, we have to allow him to build us, from the inside out, not from the outside in. And so because that inside is where all of that doubt, all of that uncertainty is made. It absolutely starts in our mind. It's what we're saying every day. And if we are looking at it, you know, 3 years ago, whatever we said 3 years ago, that's probably where we are now,
Mm,
because we have spoken it, we have given it life, we
mm,
have walked it out, whether it was for good or bad. But understanding that even if it didn't go so well,
mm,
all things still work together for good. So it's what did we learn in the process that allows us now to do it better, that allows us now to grow and strengthen our muscle, so that certain things when they come, we're not so easily moved anymore because we've seen some of that before. And
mhm.
we know that we have those receipts of where God has brought us through these things. And so, because He's done that in the past, He will absolutely do that again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think about part of what you said is that sometimes we'll get the outside
Yeah.
together and we
Yes.
haven't started the process of the inside. And I
Right.
always say to my men who are watching, I'm sure that you guys experienced it the same way, but I can only speak to
Mhm.
my experience. And
Yeah.
so I think about us as women, especially. We put on the face, we put
Yes.
on the facade, we put
Yes.
on the heels and the dress and the matching pocketbook, and we
Yes.
grab those kids and we lotion down their face, and we walk
Yes.
out the house and we all have a big happy smile on our face
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
we're dying on the inside. And we haven't
Right.
taken care of those things. So we have the
Yeah.
degrees to match. We have all these things
Yeah.
that the world has promised us will get
Yeah.
us to the place that we need to do, but we haven't dealt with the inner workings. We haven't dealt with our childhood traumas.
Hmm.
We haven't dealt
Yes.
with the things that have happened to us as we were developing and becoming the people that we are. We don't
Right.
take that time to deal with those things. So we just keep putting lipstick over top of
Yes.
sadness. And
Yes.
so I think that was
Yes.
one of the things, especially in the, and I don't know whether it comes with age or what. My grandma says
Mhm.
after 30, things get better for women.
Ah,
So there's some clarity that we get. And so I
yeah.
do remember a certain point in time when it got okay just to say, I'm not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we make sure that not only do we give ourselves space to say, you know what, I would love to be there and I would love to be
Mm-hmm.
involved with this, but today I don't have the space
Yeah.
for that. How do we get okay with being able to say those types of things? And how do we become better at helping our sisters when we see that they're not okay and when they tell
Mm-hmm.
us, I'm not okay?
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely takes practice. Um, it's the practice of, even if it's once a day, being able to say no, period, or not right now, period. Just allowing ourselves to establish boundaries, and in some cases reestablish boundaries, because there have been times where potentially we've said no, and we said no so long, and then we say, okay, yeah, I'll do it, which turns us back into that same cycle and system of, yes, that's fine, I'll take that on. Oh, I can do that over there. Oh, no problem. When all of that is a lie, because after you have said yes, you feel a sense of, oh, wait a minute. I have like 5 other things that are happening, like all around this same time frame. How in the world? What was I doing? But it was pleasing somebody. So it's understanding how to reverse that a little bit and be able to do one, what is pleasing to God, but that helps us to be settled, to be at peace within ourselves, so that when we do say yes, we are saying it from a place of peace. We are saying it from a place of, I can do this. This is realistic for me to be able to put this in. And it really, sometimes it's, I will get back to you about that, I promise. I will get back to you in at least 2 days to let you know if I can do this, so that you can realistically look at stuff and pray about it to make sure that this is not just busy work, but this is purposeful for this person and is purposeful for you. And sometimes it doesn't always have to be purposeful for you, but it still has to have a purpose, so that we're not just busy doing things, but we're intentional about it. And when we see our friends who are saying, yeah, I'm not okay, we listen. We take that opportunity to sometimes just allow them to use us as a sounding board for them to be able to get some things off their chest. And if they need more than that, being able to support them in that and encourage them to do that. Kind of checking in with each other to make sure, encouraging each other, because sometimes I'm down, sometimes they're down, sometimes I'm up, sometimes they're up. But being able to just create that system of support, because when other people see, especially women, when we see other women who say, you know what, this is what happened to me, this is my life, there are probably at least 3 other people in the room who are saying, yeah, because when I did this, this happened. And it sparks a conversation, but it's the knowing. It's the knowing that we are not all so different, that there are not some common threads that we share, some emotion, some situation or experience that has brought us to this point. But it's, let's come together, let's support each other in being able to grow and be better, and do better, because then we can be better wives, we can be better mothers, better sisters, daughters, and everything else.
So you said setting boundaries. I think that is so interesting because I think sometimes when we think of setting boundaries, we think that we're hurting people or we're limiting people. Can you speak to healthy boundaries and why they're important for ourselves? I will give the example that what I have found is why fasting is so important to me, is because it gives me the chance to tell Nika no. Because what I have learned is that Nika doesn't like no. Nika likes what she wants, when she wants it, and exactly how she asks for it. That's just what she likes, right? It makes her happy.
Yeah.
but sometimes she needs to hear no and be able to accept that no.
Yes.
And so that's why learned that I've had to start a lot of times is that if I can't set those boundaries for myself, then it's impossible for me to set them with people that I'm in a relationship with.
Right.
So help us to understand why it's so important to set those healthy boundaries for ourselves and in the relationships that we're in.
Yeah. So boundaries are so important because they give us guidelines. It's almost like having a child and not giving them any rules. So they're just all over the place. And, when they become a teenager, they're, out all hours of the night. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, you should be home by now. But then they're like, well, you never said that, or we don't have those rules. It's bringing that perspective over into if I don't have things that govern me, I will be all over the place. I will try to give to this. I will try to do for that. I will try to be over here taking care of this and all over there. All the while, I am losing valuable time. I'm probably losing valuable sleep because I have not established this is how you handle me. And in being able to tell people and explain to people how they handle you, then they will hopefully in turn give you that same care and concern, and you give them that same care and concern. They will see, oh yeah, she don't want to do this, or she doesn't like this, so I'm not going to put that on her or do that, and vice versa. They hopefully will be able to say to you, these are some of the things that I cannot do. This is how I operate in this. This is how I keep myself balanced. This is how I keep my peace. And being able to do that, because otherwise we will all be drained. We will all be frustrated. We will all be all kinds of things in the process if we are not saying, this is how you handle me. It's like that article of clothing that has instructions, how you wash it. This is how we have to be cared for. This is how we have to be nurtured in the same way.
Yeah. So I think even saying that reminds me of how important it is. One, like you said, to establish within yourself, like, what are my boundaries? What are my non-negotiables in my life?
Right.
What will I not like? So I start saying for myself, if it does not bring me joy, if it's not adding to my purpose, or if it's not supporting my family, then for this season, I have to say no. And that's because I'm busy doing some things. Now, there have been other seasons in my life where I could add some things, and my no didn't have to be so solid. That's not my case. I have to be true to myself. So that's a boundary for Nika. I have to imprint that on myself, because if not, then when somebody calls and says, can you come over and help do this? I'm likely to go because I want to help people. Like, it's just my natural nature. But I have to give myself, like you said, the whole delayed answer. Give me a second. Let me think this through. How is this adding to the joy of my life? How is this adding to my purpose? Is this supporting my family? And if it doesn't match those things, then I have to say no. And it doesn't mean that I don't support what you're doing, but right now I can't offer that. So that's one of my boundaries for myself. But then what I'm learning is how to set boundaries even in my relationships with people that keep me healthy and sane. So for me, one of the things is I don't talk on the phone after a certain time. And that's because, but you have to reteach people how to do that with you, right? Because you can't do that by yourself. And so, yes, I'm responsible for my no. I set that boundary for myself. I put that in place. I have to remind Shanika, you can't do that because you said you weren't going to. The same thing happens though in my life when my phone rings after a certain time and I don't answer it. I have to teach people, like, no matter how anxious they get, no matter how many times the phone rings, I don't answer my phone after a certain time. And it was really because God dealt with me on that, because my phone rang all the time. Like, it didn't matter. Like, it was ringing, beeping. Like, it was just something that happened. And I remember as we started moving around with the military and the time shift started changing, and I was like, but God, what if something happens? And he was like, well, what are you gonna do? Because you're not God. Like, because and I even went through to him. I'm like, well, what if somebody's dead? They already dead, what you gonna
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And so it was for me, it was setting those types of boundaries. And it's hard to reteach people that. Now, people
Yes.
close to me, they know that if it's a real emergency, that they can call my husband. What I
Yeah.
know, because my husband is very clear on his boundaries.
Uh-huh.
If they call his phone, it's a true emergency, right? And
Yes.
so
Yes.
learning how, so I still work with people who I know still may need me,
Yeah.
but still teaching them that you can't cross this line in my life
That's it.
anymore because I have to take care of
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So I think as women, especially because we're caregivers naturally,
Mm-hmm.
so we find ourselves being like, oh, that will be so mean to say that my mama can't call me if she
Yeah.
wants to talk
Yeah.
at 10 o'clock at night. And no, it's not
Yeah.
that I don't want to talk to my mama. I want to hear her voice.
Mm-hmm.
But at 10 o'clock at night, that's my time for
Right.
me. And if
Yes.
I'm going to invest in me, then even she, my
Yeah.
mother, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying this about my mom, but anybody's mom, just because that's
Yeah.
that's a pearl to us. Those you
Right.
don't ever want to tell mama no, like that's the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And so, but even with her, there has to be a boundary
Yes.
set as to where you
Absolutely.
can enter my life and how you can enter that, and how much
Absolutely.
healthier that is for you. Because now I sleep through the night. I
Yes.
would just be like shocked if my phone rang over in the night, but that's because I've taught people how to treat me in that
Right.
aspect. And so I think it's
Yeah.
so important that we learn that it is okay
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
say, this is what I need. I need you
Yes.
not to call me on Sundays.
Yes.
I don't leave my house on Sundays because that's my time for
Yeah.
me. Or
Yes.
I read a book for 2 hours on Thursday in the
Yeah.
bathroom. My kids can't knock on the door.
Right.
That's my time. That's my boundary.
Yes.
Whatever it is that you need there to support you so that you can be the woman that you want to
Mm-hmm.
be, or the
Yeah.
woman of God, or the man of God that you've been called to be,
Right.
you have to set those boundaries. Because, like you said, if you're exhausted when you get to your purpose,
Mm-hmm.
then you can't support those people. And so I
That's
do
it.
like it's so very important that people
Yeah.
understand that it's okay. I
Yeah.
think one of the other things as Christians, sometimes we're taught that forgiveness means I have to be in relationship with you.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so unlearning some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
can love you and not have to be in relationship with you.
Yes.
Or I can still love you, be in relationship with you, but decide how we're in relationship.
Yes. Yes.
Especially when anytime I can decide how I'm in
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so learning that and being okay with that, because a lot of times we're
Mm-hmm.
taught that love means giving yourself completely
Yeah.
to everything and
Yeah.
everybody. And
Yes.
so can you speak a little bit to how we unlearn some of those traditional things that we've been taught of, like what love looks like
Mm-hmm.
when it's healthy?
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of times, absolutely, we are taught to just give, to just, if somebody, you know, slaps you, you turn the other cheek. Absolutely, you do. That's the part of forgiveness. That is the part of understanding that this person is experiencing or going through something. And that something might not even be about me, but it has caused a particular rift here. And because of that, that needs to be something that we address. If that person is not able to do that or willing to do that, it becomes a work that we still have to do. Because even if you don't get that apology or get that person to change behavior, you still know this is not right. And I can't hold on to this. So I need to release it. So sometimes I'll tell people it's even okay, I'm going to write a letter, and I'll
Mm.
write a letter to that person. And I might not even ever mail this letter or ever do anything, send an email, send a text, or anything else. But I am acknowledging this hurt and that it at least hurt me. I am taking a step back and looking at my part in it. So I'm taking accountability for my actions in it, anything that I may have done that potentially caused some things. And then I am releasing all of that out. Then I take a moment to pray about it. Then I do some deep breathing and I say, in this, I have learned, and state what that is.
Mm.
State what it is that you have learned in this, and then walk in it. Walk in the unlearning of the thing you know went wrong, the thing that might have been a little dysfunctional, into what functions. Um, Love is patient, love is kind. If that person came to you tomorrow and they were in need, it's still being able to say, I can see you and I understand that you are hurting. And I can do something if I have the power within my power to do that and not feel a particular way about it
Mhm.
because I have released that feeling. I have released what it has been holding me
Yeah.
from being able to see you as the human being that God still made, although I don't agree with some things, but
Mm.
still being able to meet a need if that's possible. Or saying, if this person continues to do certain things, then okay, yeah, we can't really share space so much
Mm.
because me setting myself up all the time to be at the brunt of this is not helping me because it's chipping away at something. And so then I need to be able to say still, I love you, I care about you, I don't know what's going on, but this is what I notice. If they receive that, that's fine. If they don't, I'm still okay with that.
Mm.
I am going to continue to pray for you, continue to love you, but my love has to be at a distance. And it goes to what I've heard someone say quite often is, I want you to eat, just not at my table. And
Mm.
that is okay because you're not starving.
Mhm.
All of your needs are still being met, but they're not necessarily right here
Mhm.
because you can't always, it's difficult at times to heal in a place that hurts you. You
Yeah.
have to be able to step back from that
Yeah.
and be able to reprocess and reframe some stuff, refocus how you have been, going about certain things, reframing, this person hurt me. This person actually did, they hurt me, but they helped me. They
Mhm.
helped me to understand some things about myself. They
Mhm.
helped me to understand what might be triggering in me,
Mm.
what I need to probably grow from still so
Mm.
that I can move so I don't keep on hurting and paying that thing forward.
Yeah. When you say that, it makes me think that one of the first steps to learning to love ourselves is trusting ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
So until I can
Absolutely.
trust me, that one,
Yeah.
I'll protect me.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
trust me that I'm making good decisions for
Yeah.
myself. As I
Mm-hmm.
learn how to trust myself with those things, then it's easier for me to love myself because
Yes.
I trust
Absolutely.
that she's got my best at hand.
Yes.
Like I'm making
Yeah.
these decisions. I think, especially a lot of times when we have either, especially coming out of trauma, we
Mm-hmm.
have a very hard time doing that.
Yeah.
Even with our instincts, we tend to
Yeah.
not trust our natural instincts. And I tell people all
Yes.
the time, the Bible said God has not given us the spirit of fear.
Right.
But there's a
Right.
difference in a natural inclination to be concerned about a thing and
Right.
walking in fear.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
we get in the habit of not hearing that instinct that God has told us that this is not
Mm-hmm.
safe. You're not
Yeah.
in a safe situation. This is not a
Right.
safe person. And so, because we
Yeah.
don't trust ourselves, when we hear that
Yeah.
speaking through us, sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
continue to stay in places
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
aren't for our good. And then
Yeah.
it creates that cycle of not being able to trust each other. And then you're angry
Right.
at yourself and you
Yeah.
have guilt because if I hadn't have been there, or if I hadn't have
Mm-hmm.
said that, or if I hadn't done that, and then the
Yeah.
guilt lays on top of that. And then
Yeah.
you do stuff to punish yourself because I feel guilty because I did this. And so I deserve to be punished. And so
Right.
then we get into the areas where we're doing unhealthy things to ourselves, whether it's eating or using drugs or
Yes.
whatever those things are. But
Right.
all of it
Right.
goes back to the basis of that we didn't learn how to love ourselves in a way
Yeah.
that we could trust ourselves
Right.
and forgive
Right.
ourselves, even when we make
Yeah.
it. Even as I'm thinking about that, I think
Exactly.
about the Bible talks about that there's there now no condemnation for those who are in
Yes.
Christ Jesus.
Absolutely.
But we won't
Yes.
forgive ourselves for those things. There are some of
Yeah.
us that we are still holding ourselves hostage to things that
Yeah.
we did as kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
holding yourself down. You won't forgive yourself because you won't forgive yourself. You allow yourself to stay in relationships. I'll give an
Mm.
example. And I heard a girl say it, and it was the first time that I realized that I did it as well.
Mm.
So she was a teen mom, and so she got married quickly after having her
Mm.
baby because she
Yeah.
needed to correct that wrong.
Mm.
And in her trying to correct the wrong, she was in a very abusive relationship.
Mm.
She couldn't
Mm-hmm.
leave that relationship because I'm a teen mom. I tried to fix
Right.
it. Now I put myself in this situation. And so the layer
Mhm.
on layer of guilt made
Yes.
her feel like I deserve this. I have to stay here. And a
Yeah.
lot of people couldn't understand it when they heard her say that. They're like, why don't
Mhm.
you leave? Like you didn't come from that kind of family, yada, yada, yada. They could not conceive feeling guilty enough that you felt like you
Right.
deserved to be
Yeah.
beat because that's all that there could possibly be for me.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
for a minute when I heard her speak, I thought to myself, no, that could never be me. That was
Mhm.
that, we do the whole never me thing.
Yeah.
And my God is so good because he will check me in a minute. I hope
Yeah.
people's Holy Spirit are as good as mine and he checks them all the time because I'm like, Lord, you have to come for me all the time. But he does.
Yeah.
He showed me how in my life I had done some of the same things. I was a teen mom and
Mhm.
I loved
Yeah.
my son. And I tell people
Yeah.
all the time that I serve a God that even
Yes.
in my sin, that he gave me
Yes.
a blessing because
Absolutely.
he could have allowed
Absolutely.
anything else to happen. I could have got
Absolutely.
a disease that was incurable. I could have died
Yeah.
out there, but that's how he gave
Right.
me many gifts. And so I
Yes.
thank God for that every day.
Yeah.
But however, there's some guilt that comes with that, especially when you've
Mm.
been raised in the church and there's some things
Yes.
that come with
Yeah.
it. I have a clear understanding that the sin was not the baby. And
Right.
that as
Right.
people, we have to get better at making sure that we understand that and we
Yes.
convey that
Yes.
to our young
Yes.
women. That
Yeah.
that is not the sin. That is your
Mhm.
blessing.
Yes.
And so, but at the time, my brain told me I needed to fix the situation.
Mm.
So I
Mhm.
remember the search in my heart to get married, to like
Yeah.
I wanted to get married faster than probably people normally my age, but I needed to fix what I had did
Yeah.
wrong.
Right.
And so I think that learning how not to walk in the shame of any
Mhm.
situation,
Yeah.
even carrying the shame from things that have happened to us in our
Right.
past. Sometimes we carry the shame of sexual assault or
Yes.
sexual abuse, and we carry those things into how we see and feel about
Yeah.
ourselves. We
Yeah.
take ownership of how somebody misused us. We come
Mhm.
out of bad relationships and we take ownership of that and make it about ourselves
Yeah.
instead of allowing ourselves to heal, forgive ourselves,
Mhm.
and then trust
Yes.
our instinct as we go into new relationships.
Mhm.
So if I'm really growing the way I should, the
Yeah.
next time I meet Jimbo and
Yeah.
he sounds just like Jim Bob,
Mhm.
when my instincts say this is not a good situation, I should love
Mhm.
myself enough to trust
Yeah.
that this probably is not the best thing for me.
Right.
And so I just encouraging us as a people to get to a place where we do trust ourselves and that
Yes.
we love and forgive ourselves in a way that we're
Mhm.
able to show that love to ourselves.
Yes.
Um, I think that you use the scripture, love is patient, love is kind, all
Yeah.
those things. If you can't apply that to how you're treating yourself, how do
Mhm.
you apply that to other people? So if
Absolutely.
I'm not patient with Shanika, if you're
Yeah.
not kind to Keisha, like
Yeah. Yeah.
how on earth could you ever start being those things to
Right.
me or your
Right.
kids or your
Yeah.
husband or your friends? Like
Yeah.
I counsel people a lot of times, and the one thing I see is how mean they are to themselves.
Mm.
Like they will
Yeah.
forgive everybody in the room. They will
Except for
justify
them.
how,
Mm.
why, when, where somebody else
Yes.
could have done something. Everything has a
Yes.
justification. But
Absolutely.
the minute you try to get them to see that what they did was okay, their
Mhm.
brain can't comprehend
Not at all. Not at
forgiveness
all.
for themselves,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
turns into self-loathing, which means you can't
Yes.
love yourself. And we said that today our base scripture is going to be Matthew 22:37-39. It says, and he said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your
Mhm.
heart and with your
Yeah.
with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the
Yeah.
great and first commandment. And
Yeah.
second is like it, you shall love your neighbor as
Mhm.
yourself. And so I
Yeah.
just always think about that, like, how do you even get to the first commandment of loving
Yeah.
God?
Mhm.
And then the second commandment of loving your neighbor, if
Yeah.
you can't love
Yourself.
yourself, like you've been with
Mhm.
you the entire of
Yes.
your life
Yes.
and you don't like her. Like,
Right.
how do you do this? So then when I see somebody who is not like me, who doesn't
Uh-huh.
look like me, doesn't act like
Yeah.
me, doesn't have the education I have, don't come from the same background as me,
Yeah.
not the same color as me, because
Yeah.
they're still my neighbor.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How do I love them when I look in the mirror
Yeah.
and I can't love her?
Mhm.
How do I forgive them when they step on my toe
Yeah.
when I can't forgive her because she didn't finish school?
Right. Right.
So those are the things that I start feeling like we have to discuss is like, how do you let those things go so
Yeah.
that you can learn to love every bit of you, the
Mm-hmm.
mistakes,
Yeah.
the funny sides of you,
Right.
the things that make people turn their nose up at you, the things that make
Right.
people smile. If you can't
Yeah.
embrace all of those things about yourself, and I'm not saying it happens
Right.
overnight because it doesn't.
Right.
It's
Oh
a
no,
process for
absolutely
all of us.
not. Yeah.
If you can't
Yeah.
even start that process, how do you get to a place where you love? Because the Bible does say, "How do you love me, whom you've never seen?" And
Yes.
you can't love your neighbor. And then I'm going to
Yes.
take it further. How do you love your neighbor if you can't love?
Love yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are key. That self-love part is absolutely important and necessary because absolutely, like you said, if you can't see the value in yourself, if you can't see, how worthy you are, then you absolutely cannot take that from out of you and give it to somebody else.
Mm,
And so it's being able to really, really sit and see, look at all of the scriptures of who God says you are, who he
mm,
says and what you can do. Being able to remind yourself of those daily.
mm,
On my phone at like 9 a.m., there's an alert that comes up. It tells me all of God's promises, all of
mm.
the things that I speak life about. And it reminds me to focus and meditate on that. Because when what I see doesn't line up with sometimes the stuff in here, I still know that He loves me, He cares for me. And in that, I have to simmer and I have to say, it is well.
Yeah.
And that is the daily thing. That's the journey. That's the even if it's a centimeter forward, it's progress. It's movement in the right direction to
Mm,
be able to see yourself who as God sees you, then also turn that to what is in me. I can now see outside of me. I can
mm,
now see my brothers and my sisters
mm,
and whether or not they are working and dealing with different things in life, it is okay. It is a non factor because they are my brother, they are my sister, and I can still love them. I can
mm.
love them if I don't like some of their behavior.
Yes.
And being able to say, one day you'll get there because I can recall I did some stuff too. And
Yeah.
because of that, that didn't cancel me out. That didn't mean that I could not be better, that I could not do better. So I continue to encourage because you mentioned being a teen mom. I my parents were teenagers when they had me. And so it's the every good and perfect gift comes from the Lord.
Mm,
Now, it might not have started out in a way that people are like, oh, that's wonderful, but it's still a gift
yeah.
and it is still good. And when God gets in it, it creates a finished product that man can't even explain nor understand. Because when it's a God thing, that's it.
Mm,
That's all that matters. But we have to stay in that mindset, in that knowing that he who begun a good work, he's faithful to complete it. But we got to give him space to be able to complete it
yeah.
in order for us to be that finished product that we need to be.
Yeah.
So you might start rough and rugged, but keep going
Yeah.
because when you finish, you absolutely you'll come forth as that pure gold.
Mm.
Yeah.
I was just, even as you were talking, I pictured you saying giving out of yourself. And I was
Mhm.
just picturing, I just saw like pulling out of yourself like the whale. And if you
Yeah.
haven't taken care of all the muck and all that nastiness, and
Yeah.
you're not at a place where you purely love yourself, then it
Yeah.
just made me think about every time I draw out of my whale that's inside of me to
Mhm.
give out, then
Yeah.
even like when I'm giving love to my kids, if I haven't taken care of that
Yeah.
muck that's in my whale, then
Yeah.
I'm really giving them dirty, dirty love,
Absolutely.
right? And as much
Absolutely.
as I love them and as much as all I want is the best for them, if I don't take
Yeah.
care of me, if I don't
Yeah.
deal with those things so that I can see clearly, like you said,
Right.
how God sees me, then every time I draw up out of my whale,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
got contamination in it.
Yeah.
What my
Yeah.
intentions are, no matter how
Yeah.
good I am to the people that I'm
Mhm.
doing this for, it's
Yeah.
contaminated
Yes.
every
Absolutely.
single time. And so I think for me, that helps me because I do love the people in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us, we do. We want better for our kids than we do for
Right.
ourselves. Sometimes we take
Yes.
care of our husbands better than, we do all
Yeah.
these things. So our intentions are to give them a pure
Yeah.
love. And
Yeah.
so that's really as important to me as I say that it is, then I would do
Mm-hmm.
the work to make sure
Right.
that what they really are getting from me
Yeah.
is a clean, pure love. Because
Mm-hmm.
right now I have contamination. And maybe my contamination isn't as thick as it was when I was 19.
Right.
But if I haven't dealt with it at 42, there's
Yeah.
still particles in my water that can cause
Absolutely.
somebody to get sick.
Yes.
And I don't want
Yes.
anybody to get sick off my love. Like,
Right.
we don't want that.
Yeah.
That's not the intention of loving somebody.
Yeah.
But until
Yeah.
we clean that up, we take the chance of passing. I was gonna say E. coli, but take the chance of passing depression. We take the
Yes.
chance of passing trauma, like all
Yes.
those things. I'm willing to
Yes.
take a chance. But
Mm-hmm.
I just had an encounter with somebody who had E. coli poisoning.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the doctor said is that it could have just been like a microscopic amount
Mm-hmm.
and made her sick
Mm-hmm.
for weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I
Oh,
haven't cleaned
wow.
that up, if my love isn't pure on the inside of
Right.
me,
Yes.
no matter how small it is, if the right
Mm-hmm.
person gets a hold of it, I
Yeah.
could put them in the hospital.
Yes.
And we're talking about the
Mhm.
emotional, mental hospital of
Yes.
life, but still I can
Mm-hmm.
cause a sickness to somebody who I
Yeah.
claim to love
Yeah.
just because
Yeah.
I didn't clean up all the things that were going on with me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
hadn't thought
good.
about that like that.
Yeah.
It makes me want
Yeah.
to reevaluate
Yeah.
how I'm
Yeah.
loving the people around me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
more importantly, how I'm loving myself first so that I
Yes.
can love them the
Absolutely.
right way.
Absolutely.
So I
Yeah.
know that we're coming to the end of our talk, but first of all, I do want to talk about, I know that it's your work, but there's a
Uh-huh.
ministry that you're doing as well. You have a retreat that you put on
Yeah.
yearly for women, and I
Yeah.
know that it has impacted women's lives. So will you just tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that so that the people who are listening can get the
Mhm.
information for that?
Yeah, so definitely. So the name of the retreat is the Drop Your Bags Retreat. And it is about it's a retreat for women, and it's about really being able to unload all the things that weigh us down. And it goes to what you're saying, so that we don't, give those microscopic E. coli's to other people as we are trying to help them, that we don't hurt them in the process. And so it's a 3 to 4 day retreat that we do. We go away and we just spend time. We have a lot of dynamic speakers who come in and pour into us. We have the ladies who have their own life experiences that are a wealth of knowledge that provide support and care and concern. And in that process, we also get massages and we do things that we might not always do for ourselves, because this is about self-care and self-love. This is about pouring into ourselves so that when we come away from this retreat, we don't feel like we need a vacation, but we feel recharged, refocused, and able to continue to move so that we can be the things that we need to be. Along this journey, we spend time with journaling, we spend time with prayer and meditation. We allow ourselves just that space and that opportunity, and it's an awesome time. And actually next year, the 9th of June through the 12th will be those dates. And so just kind of keep in touch. You can reach me on social media for sure, but you can also go to www.4lifeinterrupted.com, and then you can get a little bit of information and send me a message so that I can keep you on that list, so that when time comes, you'll be in the know and you'll be ready to go.
I love it. It's so important that we take that time for ourselves. And I love that you're doing it with a group of women so we can love on each other, get refreshed, all those things. I'm really excited about what you're doing. What we'll do is we'll add a link to your website
Okay.
on the recording. So you guys
Yeah.
go look for that. It's either in our bio or on the about information, so that you can go to her website and just check that out. It is an awesome thing. And I love that you allow God to put that on your heart and that you continue to allow him to use you in that way. as we get ready to go, if there was one nugget that you could share with the people of God about the importance of making sure that they're in relationship with God first and relationship with themselves, and that they love themselves in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I think I can say is that every day above ground is definitely a good day. But we have a dash because we know when we were born, that's on our birth certificate. We don't know, when our last breath will be. But in the meantime, in between time, make sure that your days count and you're not counting the days. Because when your days count, you're being purposeful, you're being intentional. And in that, you're understanding that this is truly the day the Lord has made. I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it. So allow praise, allow gratitude to be a part of your start to every day. Welcome God in, allow him to make all the crooked places straight for you, because only he can do that. But you got to make room. If you don't make room for him, he will not force you, because he is a gentleman. He definitely will not intrude. But I promise you that life will be so much more peaceful. It will be so much sweeter when you do those things. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And just adding to that, just the importance of loving ourselves and remembering that we serve a God who is willing to die for us. He loved us so much that he died so that we could live an
Yes.
abundant life. And so don't take it for granted, and know that every time when you say, I can't love myself because you negate how big a God he is, because he's a big enough God that your butt doesn't even matter. And so I just encourage you to take heart in who you are and who he created you are. And never forget above all of that whose you are. You belong to him. And because you belong to him, there's nothing on this earth that you cannot do and that he will not do for you. And so focus on loving yourself, being there for yourself, giving yourself time, separating yourself, pulling yourself away so that you can hear from God and get the direction that he would have for you to take. And so we love you guys with the love of the Lord. We're excited about this month as we continue to talk about relationships. You can look for us. We're going to talk about how we are in relationships in almost every way that you can think of being in relationships with somebody. So come back and join us on next week, and we can't wait to see you. And don't forget to make it a great one.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Let's Talk. I pray that you got something out of the conversation and that you'll join us again next week at 6 p.m. as we talk some more about how God is moving on the earth. Don't forget, make it a great one.